Hi everybody, it's crazy, it's Monday, and it's time for the UPBGE video of the week. Now, before I get started, gotta give a shout out to my trusted, because you guys rock, to my crazy fam, I love you guys. Now, we're up to episode number 80, and last week we left off with page number, or at the bottom of page number 20, and I gotta scroll back up a little bit, there we go, to the texture panel. Now, if you're not familiar with the texture panel, I'm gonna switch over to here. Okay, this is the texture panel. You get to tinker around with it today. It's a harder one to deal with because of the fact that you got a lot of stuff you can work with. Okay, so let's get started. All right, the texture panel. Texture is the main way to add details to a surface without adding extra polygons. It is done by mapping a 2D image onto the surface of a 3D object. Okay, and I'm going to switch back over to here real quick. There we go. And what it's illustrating is this is your 3D object. This is a 2D, okay, texture map, and it will lay it on top of that and make it fit it. Okay. Texture data blocks are almost always linked to a material. See note below for exception. Each material can have multiple textures, and through layering and blending of textures, complex effects can be achieved. The top area of the texture panel shows you all the textures attached to the active material. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to here. Okay, we're in a texture panel. It's already got a texture, okay, but it shows you what they've got on them. And as you see, only one of them has it. These other two don't have one, okay, because I'm not using them. But you can actually see the textures if I put a texture on it. All these are just materials, okay? So this one's the only one that has a texture 01, okay? I didn't copy the texture panel or texture to it because I made a new material, okay? So this shows you all the textures that are attached to that material. If there's none, then there won't be any, and you have to add one, okay? Non-material textures. The only exception in a world texture, or is a world texture, which is linked directly to the world settings without a material, and the brush texture, which is used for painting or sculpting. However, both of them are only supported in Blender Eternal Renderer and not implemented in the game engine, so don't worry about it. Don't even pay attention to it. Therefore, for our game purposes, all the texture data blocks must indeed be linked to a material. So you have to have it linked to a material, okay, in order for it to work. Note that in Blender, texture slots are ordered so that textures further down the texture slots override textures on top of the list. This is opposite from how most image editors treat layers, okay? So basically, this one's going to be first, this one's going to be second, this one's going to be third, so on and so forth, okay? Oh, no, I'm sorry, I got it backwards. Actually, this would be your last texture. This would be the texture before that, and all the way down till you get to your first texture. Okay, in other words, this one's going to be the one that it renders first, this one's going to be the one it renders second, so on and so forth, up the chain until it finally gets here. Now, if you only have one, it's just going to be that one. But say, for example, I added a second one, then this one will be rendered first, and then this one will be rendered second, okay? Alright, so to create a new texture, the object must already have a material, which we do. Okay, say we got a material on this one. This is called green eyes. This is the one we're going to use, okay, because it doesn't have a texture. Yay! Okay, select the object and add a new material if necessary. We've already got that. Okay, then in the texture panel, click on the plus new icon, which is plus new icon. As soon as you hit that, you get a texture, okay, to create a new texture in the first texture slot. Okay, so that's going to put one right there. All right, for working with the game engine, set the type for the texture to image. Okay, so we're going to go down here. If you're using any Blender past 2.75 or 2.76, it will automatically be set to image or movie. You have to set it on either one of these in order to change it to something else, okay? So it will automatically default to the image or movie unless you're running an older, way older version of Blender, which, and I hope you're not. UPBGE uses this automatically as well. Okay. The only other available texture type option is environmental map. Procedure textures such as clouds and noise are not supported in the game engine. Yes, they are. Okay, they are now supported in the game engine. Back then they were not. But most people just use image or movie because you create your own. You can actually add these and use them, but it will have to be exported out or something like that. Okay, so first thing you do is you've created a material, okay, and you've made a new texture block, okay, because you chose image or movie, okay. To load an image as a texture, you either load an existing image data block, one that is already being used in this Blender file. So in other words, you will come down here, and if you click here, there's nothing, okay, so I ain't got nothing in here, so we'd have to go to new, oops, close that one out, I did that wrong, okay, generate a new image directly from within Blender. You can create a new image by doing this, which you don't want to do that, okay, right now, unless you're creating your own texture map, that'd be the only time you use that, but that's further down in the lessons, okay. Browse and load an image file from your computer. That is this little button right here. You click that and yay, you can go into your textures, and now you got all kinds of textures you can grab from, okay. Once an image is loaded, you have some options to change the way the color space and alpha channel are interpreted. Okay, in other words, let's go ahead and just create a new one. Okay, I'm going to call it new texture, my text. Okay, you got your alpha. You know, if you want alpha on, you can have blank, you can have UV grid, or you can have a color grid. Some people use color grid because it's a little bit easier to play with. Okay, and then you hit OK. Now you can see you got a material of color grid. Okay, so your input color space, I'm going to find out where it's at. Let's see. Controls the color space. Okay, so input color space. Okay, and I don't see that anywhere. That's parallax, influence. We haven't gotten to that yet. Should be in here somewhere. Okay, you can show alpha. I know that. Doesn't have a view as render. Okay, I'm just going to read them off, I guess. Controls the color space transformation that happens when the image is used. Normally, textures are created in the, oh, okay, it's talking about this right here. Okay, that's your color. This is your color space. This is stuff you got. Okay. Let's see. So the default setting is sufficient, which is usually RSRGB. You can use some filmatic, log, linear aces, so on and so forth. There's many to choose from, but most of the time people just use this because it works the best. Okay. View as render. If you click this on, it will view it as a render, as if you rendered it. Okay, which we don't have it mapped yet, so it's not going to matter. Apply an additional color transform in order to take into account the color transform when rendering. Okay, use alpha. Okay, that's, let's see, I don't see use alpha on this. Okay, they don't have it, but you can also change here to whatever you want as well. Okay, also, if I clicked out of this and I picked one, let's go into textures. Okay, Blender Skies River. Okay, as you see, now more options have popped up. Okay, you can view as render, you can do SVGs, and I still don't see the other one. Okay, but you can I guess you can use alpha. I mean, it just says show alpha. When you pick one, you can show alpha. I don't see it in here. So, not going to worry about it. Okay, maybe image sampling. No. Alright, so I'm just going to read it anyway. It uses the alpha channel of an image when available. If enabled, you can also pick between straight alpha and pre-multiplied alpha. The difference is beyond the scope of this chapter, but if your alpha texture has a dark or bright fringe around the edge, then sometimes switching between straight alpha and pre-multiplied alpha can solve it. Okay. The image sampling pattern. I have to pass my point. So guess what? We're going to have to wait on that. Okay. So next week we're going to go ahead and go into this. I told the better half that I will only keep it in 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there, and we're going to leave off with the image sampling. We'll go ahead and catch that next week. Okay. And let me switch back over to here. Okay, so we ended on page 22, okay, and we're going to do image sampling panel next week, okay? And I hope y'all had a safe and, relaxing Labor Day. I've enjoyed it. So until next week.